Hi, this is Chet here from Avion Technology here in the Chicagoland area. We are a digital agency in the northwest suburbs. We specialize in developing a lot of products for MVP. We also help to ramp up other small digital agencies. And of course, the third area that we work in is helping local small businesses with that marketing. Today, I'm going to talk about AI. AI is the flavor of the month this year. I've been doing this for the last 17 years, 18 years. So I've watched a lot of these trends. So in fact, when I first came to the US back in 2000 as a student, the whole dot-com boom was going on, and everyone predicted truly that it did change the world for sure. But everyone kind of predicted that this was going to lead to the destruction of all these jobs, and there's going to be chaos, and you know they were pessimists and optimists, but both kind of tended to kind of be at the extreme. So those who were optimistic about the internet economy kind of said that the boom will last forever, and those who kind of were pessimistic about it said that this is going to lead to a lot of job losses and chaos. Neither of which happened. The internet was definitely a game changer, like all other technological advances before it, right? So you had the steam engine, and the invention of electricity, and the invention of cars, and then the invention of planes. So you had all these different technological advances, and every time something like this happens, the world kind of changes for sure. So it's the same with AI now, right? AI has always been around. If you're anyone who's remotely related to data, or if you're an IT programmer, you know that we always did algorithms based on large data sets, right? Where you kind of build some kind of predictive modeling inside it. So this has always been around. It's just that now, a lot of the world suddenly needs something new, right? Consulting firms need something new to kind of package it in and sell it to their clients. I remember, I don't know how many of you remember this, but there was this whole concept called Web 2.0 in UI UX, and it was essentially just using different colors and different fonts and different kind of gradients, but it got branded as Web 2.0. And a whole lot of UI UX designers kind of charged a lot of fees, because of that. Then we had the whole cloud, right? The whole digital transformation. The cloud was always there, right? We used to call it the internet, but you had this whole transition to the cloud, and again, McKinsey, Deloitte, all these big guys, just made a lot of money out of that. So it's the same thing with AI. AI has always been there. You've always had big data sets. You've always had developers who attack big data sets and kind of try to build some kind of a predictive modeling into it. I remember Expedia. I've been using Expedia for a long time. I think ever since 2002 or 3 or 4, somewhere around that time. I always remember Expedia always had some kind of predictive tools, on its website. So this is not something new. It's been there for a long time. It's just that now it's the flavor of the month. So one of the areas that I'm personally very excited about AI. So first of all, I think AI is a lot like nuclear energy, right? Nuclear energy can be used. It's the cleanest form of energy, right? So it can be used for a lot of good things, but it can be used for a lot of bad things as well. So it's ultimately upon humanity to decide what you want to use it for. So similarly, it's the same thing with AI. I think AI can be used to solve a lot of complex problems, but it can be also used to, further kind of increase this divide that's happening, right? This whole income inequality, and it will lead to kind of a dystopian society 10, 20 years from now. So it's what humanity will choose to do with it, which will decide how good or bad AI is. So one of the interesting areas that I feel AI can offer a lot is actually in healthcare. And the reasons are pretty, I personally think, pretty valid. So one of my biggest frustrations of living in the US has always been the healthcare industry, right? I think personally the healthcare industry in the US is completely broken. The way, it's essentially alchemy, right? You don't know what you're paying for, the visits, you don't know how they're charged, and almost everything kind of feels like a racket. One of the areas where the healthcare industry in the US is typically kind of handicapped is that there's just not enough doctors, right? So anyone who's wanted to take an appointment and been frustrated about it will tell you that it takes 1 month, 2 months to find, sometimes it takes a month or 2 months to get a specialist, or about a week to even sometimes get onto the calendar of your family practice, of your family doctor. So I think one of the things that will happen in AI is areas like radiology, for example, right? Um, the diagnosis will be much more accurate, and you will also not have the insane waiting time, right? So when you go to a imaging center right now, after you finished your MRI, after you finished, your DEXA scan or whatever, it still takes you a good, 3, 4, 5 days before you get the results. That time I think will be reduced because you'll have AI, which will perform a lot of the radiologist's function. Also, I think that, so what has happened in the US, right, is that a lot of the physician's work is not done by the physician's assistant or the nurses, as we used to call them before. And the reason for that is that there's such a shortage of doctors, right? So if you go to a doctor, typically it's the physician's assistant who will kind of take your vitals and ask you what it's about, and in fact most of the diagnosis will be done by the physician's assistant. And the reason is because there's just not enough doctors to go around. Now what will happen is that those physician assistants will start using AI. So if you have cough, or if you have some fever, or if some symptoms like that, AI will use the data sets that it has to kind of predict what you have. So if you go to a doctor, with some mild flu-like symptoms, AI will be able to predict whether it's COVID or whether it's just a seasonal flu or if it's something else. And then the physician assistant will kind of look at that and validate whatever AI has said. So in areas where there's not enough doctors, actually in a lot of the third world countries, like developing countries, that's a big issue, right? There's just not enough doctors, there's just not enough medical health professionals. So I think AI will be a game changer in those areas. In the 60s, the infant mortality in the US really went down because of all these new inventions and new advances, right? I think this whole AI revolution will help in creating those kind of outcomes in a lot of developing countries where there's just not enough doctors or not enough nurses. And I think overall, like I said, it's a lot like nuclear energy. If humanity decides to use it for good, then it's going to have great outcomes. If we decide to use it, for selfish gains, which I'm sure there's a lot of corporates who are already thinking about it, but at the end of the day, I personally think AI is going to be a change for good, and it's going to lead to better outcomes. I think the healthcare and pharma industry is probably one of the first areas where we start seeing a lot of the implementation. Probably because they already have a lot of the data sets with them. They already have a lot of the data with them. So it's just a matter of putting the machine learning or the machine learning algorithm on top of those data sets, and it'll start churning out a lot of the predictive answers. So yeah, it's interesting times for sure. If you're a small business, I think AI is definitely an area that you should look at. A lot of small ways, right? Like chatbots, for example. Chatbots is AI, but chatbots make sure that anyone who visits your website, is attended to, right? So small things like that. So yeah, so if, at Avion we're definitely AI is a new area by itself, right? So everyone who's in AI right now is still learning, is still groping in the dark. So we are still learning here, especially machine learning. We use Python and Jupyter. So if you have a data science project, definitely let us know. We'd be happy to help you out. Definitely happy to assist you with the discovery phase. So yeah, thank you so much. Chet here, Avion Technology. Thanks. Bye.